Hello everybody and welcome along to this edition of the Rebel Wide Ball. Do you know something? Somebody described the weather as Scaravine time. I reckon it's that hungry time of year that heralds the arrival of the cuckoo. Anyway, that's our weather forecast for today. I won't say moving on because I think it's maybe moving back when you talk about the current situation that appears to be happening in the northern part of our island, I should say. And you know, it's 23 years now since the peace agreement was signed, but sadly, it would appear that all is not well in the province whatsoever. And, you know, you've probably noticed only full well the amount of writing that's going on in some of the loyalist part of Northern Ireland over the past number of nights. And last night, it reached a new level when there was about 600 people involved. And most of these obviously are, you know, the driving force behind these are loyalists, I suppose, paramilitary gangs, if you like. And sometimes it can be a little, not that I understand it, like, but there can be a kind of a simplistic view of this that, you know, it's the Gorriers that are involved in this, but, and maybe that might be, you know, to a certain degree, but when the political leaders and the political system fail, this is where violence steps into the vacuum, if you like. And, you know, it's rather frightening now when you think there's, you know, cars have burned, houses burned. I think there's up to 55 police officers, PSNI officers that have been injured since this thing started. And of course, when we go then and start apportioning the blame, you can look at many corners, and the adults here are, you know, are supposed to be the Northern Ireland Assembly, the Parliament that they have up there, which is basically not very functioning, I would suggest, when you had Arlene Foster calling earlier in the week for the resignation of the PSNI Chief Constable Simon Byrne. And that was because the report that came out after the funeral during the summer, which absolutely, you know, maybe, like it did, it went against all public health guidelines. And there's absolutely no doubt that the people that marched there have a hand in this just as much as Arlene Foster has, when over 2,000 people, I think, marched in that funeral for Bobby Story. And then you had the Northern Ireland Protocol, and of course some people, I suppose, from the nationalistic point of view down here, the simplistic view was, you know, celebrate that because, you know, it showed that the British didn't really care about loyalists or about the unionists. And it's such a complicated setup, but the sad part about it is that you now have these political leaders all coming out today in an effort to try and stem the tide, to revert back into violence, which is a huge pity, you know, for the northern, as we say, the northern part of our island. Then the next thing we had were, as everybody will know, that the Teachers Union Congresses, the three of them usually take place at Easter, and maybe the timing on this occasion wasn't the best because it coincided with the changing of the vaccine rollout. You know, it's going to be age-based now rather than the different categories. And of course, there was a motion passed at Congress, which I suppose the first thing should be said about teachers' unions, in case we damn them completely, is that like all unions, you know, they have done a lot of good in terms of, you know, for working conditions, but at times do they shoot themselves in the foot. And like, all that will happen here is absolutely nothing. There'll be a bit of posturing. There can't be a strike until there's a ballot, and you can take it. There won't be a ballot or there won't be a strike. Had this decision been made by the government, where they were changing the categorisation, if you like, to at some other time of the year, we wouldn't have had this at all. But it just coincided with Congress, and there's nothing Congress likes more than to debate an emergency motion. So that's what happened there. So I would encourage people, don't worry too much about it. Vaccines are back in business, and of course the AstraZeneca, and this is the vaccine that, you know, has been described as I suppose, the season changer in terms of its, the ease of storage of it, the price of it, and this is the one that will save the world if vaccines are to save it. Sadly, the amount of, you know, there are some evidence that has been peddled out there, and some of it with scientific background, that it does, you know, the vaccine does have side effects, particularly maybe in young people, and there are some countries now have stopped vaccinating certain age groups with it because of the dangers of clots. But, you know, like, it would be a pity if that was to happen, because there's no doubt the other vaccines the mRNA ones, like they're so costly and they're so, they cost so much and they're difficult to store. So, and we're told on several occasions that the benefits far outweigh whatever, side effects are there. And for any of us that are on medication, by God, someone must take some shot of it. There's huge side effects to everything you take. The beacon of light, I suppose, or the light at the end of the tunnel was the indication maybe earlier on that, shops, hairdressing, gyms will open on a phased basis during the month of May. Nationwide travel, which wasn't going to happen until July, might now happen in June. And they're now talking about the vaccine, what do they call them? The vaccine bonus. That maybe people that have been vaccinated would be the first to go into these shops and hairdressers. I'd say we're only, some of you will probably remember your children, or maybe you were at it yourself, falsifying IDs to get into what they call them, nightclubs or whatever. I'd say that we're only a step away now from some genius coming up with the idea of producing false vaccine certificates so that you can avail of the bonuses that are going to accrue from being vaccinated. We'll be keeping a close eye on that. In terms of the GA, well, it's all about training bands once again, and now we have Monaghan were found in breach, even though their chairman said earlier today that he knew nothing about it. Dublin, we had them last week, and of course we had Down and Cork. But this is incredible. Banty was caught this time. He apologised. It was a serious element of a serious element of judgment involved. If you knew Banty, I'd say he's really, really worried about this. By the way, I would make a distinction here between clubs that are breaching COVID situations in terms of the training bans and county. COVID will pass, thankfully. There'll be no problem with clubs and training bans then. But this these inter-county breaking bans and breaking deadlines and breaking guidelines, I should say, started long, long ago. The power that these inter-county managers have. And I reckon that now is the time. There's another opportunity, if you like, one of these COVID cloud white line situations that can be brought to bear, draw up a inter-county charter and have one little sanction in it, that if they break GA guidelines, leave everything else out of it, that the managers must resign straight away and have nothing more to do with that county team for the rest of the year. These, like Dublin moved fast last week and they gave Desi 12 weeks, and Monaghan did the very same thing. I'll tell you, these bans, these 12-week bans for the county managers are just the very same as giving somebody a driving ban, but at the same time providing him with his own personal driver for the amount of time he'd be off the road. Do you think this makes any difference whatsoever? Forget about it, my friends. It doesn't. Back to the, for those of you that follow the fortunes of Cork GA, there was an interesting county board meeting during the week in relation to relegation. A couple of years ago, not to seriously bore you about this, but the county board executive decided that they would reduce the number of teams taking part in the various county championships. When they started this, there was 60 teams in hurling and 52 in football. How come there's more teams in hurling than football in this county? But that's for another debate. And they were going to put them into 4 championships with 12 teams in each, which was absolutely perfect. The Premier Senior, they call it, the Senior A, Premier Intermediate. In order to facilitate this relegation, there was all teams that would be in the lower grade intermediate hurling would be relegated back to their division. All 12 of them would go back to their divisions at the end of this year. And also 4 teams from the that currently play in the Intermediate Football Championship, they'd also be relegated to the divisions. It would not, and this was all signed, sealed and delivered. Admitting now that, that like there is a COVID situation around this, and, people are making noises that you shouldn't do this during COVID times. And that, that may be the case. But what this has really done, it has highlighted, if they go back to the divisions. And it has been proved, particularly last season, there are 8 divisions in Cork. Some of these divisions, because of the small number of teams, because of incompetency, are not fit for purpose. And we had cases last year where the junior championship were straight knockout. We had divisions who failed to finish their championship because they won't adhere to playing extra time. So it would now appear that these 12 teams that are the teams that were meant to be relegated at the end of this year, that some of those clubs are getting rather excited about it. And even though they may be using the COVID excuse, the bottom line is they don't want to go back into the divisions. And that then begs the question, if they don't want to go back in there, what about the clubs that are playing in these divisions at the moment, these junior clubs? And I would contend quite a few of them are every bit as good as the teams that are playing in the that are being spoken about of being relegated. So if they don't relegate this year, it means I can understand maybe that they will use the COVID excuse, but the bottom line here is I think the time has come when the Cork County Board, because they can't do much about the divisions, that they're going to have to run the junior championship on a county basis. I think it is grossly unfair to set up anyway at the moment, where the only way you can win the Cork County Junior Football or Hurling Championship, you've got to get to two finals in the 1 year. This happens nowhere else. 2 finals in the 1 year to get out of it. So I think there's a serious bit of work to be done about all of this. In the counties, you know, goes back next Monday week, the 19th, and I think the GA tomorrow will release their games programme for the year, which will probably see the leagues commencing in the middle of May, and then championship maybe middle of June, and after that then it will be back to the clubs. Well, we hope that'll be the situation. Now, moving on to soccer, and tonight, if you're into the Europa League, it's a big night for the 2 clubs that are involved there. It's the quarter-final of the first leg. You've got Arsenal playing Slavia Prague. That game is going to go on in the Emirates, and after Arsenal's poor performance last week, where they were beaten, hammered by Liverpool, they'll be anxious to win that game, and I think they have a good chance. Manchester United, likewise, they go to Spain to play Granada in their first league game, and I'm not a follower of Spanish football. I don't think Granada are in the top echelons of world soccer, so that is them. I'd expect the 2 English teams to do well in those, and then the next round, the legs will take place next Thursday. There were teams that were involved in the European Cup competition during the week. Liverpool will be, well, maybe disappointed. They were beaten 3-1 by Real Madrid. The return leg takes place next week. The away goal might get them through, but there's a lot of because this is a big match for Liverpool. They're out of the Premier League. Manchester City conceded a goal as well against Borussia Dortmund. They won 2-1, so they're still on, you know, well on course to have an absolutely massive season. And finally, you've got Chelsea. They're winning 3-0 against 2-0 against Porto, so I think they're going to be okay. Then we're back in Premier League action this weekend, and we've games on Saturday. We have to mention Manchester City versus Leeds. Now, for those of you who follow Leeds and are Leeds supporters, I'm not too sure whether you're watching Tommy Tiernan interviewing the neurosurgeon Kieran Bulger the other night, and you know, the neurosurgeon was describing the kind of work he does and all this kind of thing, and at one stage Tommy Tiernan interjected, you know, and he said, like, obviously if somebody wakes up after brain surgery and they tell you they're supporting Leeds United, obviously the operation wasn't a great success. So I don't know what's the implication for all you Leeds United supporters. But you're going to be playing Manchester City on a Saturday. Liverpool play Aston Villa, who have a great season. And for the one Crystal Palace supporter, maybe the tunes our way, they have a big game against Chelsea. And the game on Sunday then that we'll be keeping an eye on is that Spurs will play Manchester United. In the Championship, you know, we've been following the fortunes of Swansea because of Conor Hourihane. Well, they've been, after falling off the ledge a little bit over the last couple of weeks, they have a big game against Millwall on Saturday, and they've now moved on to 4th place. They were in 2nd in one stage, but look, if they end up in the top 6, they will be in the playoffs, and you know that's if they're in the top 2, they'd be automatically promoted. So I think now the important thing for them is to start get back winning matches as well. The League of Ireland and the 2 Cork clubs, Cove Ramblers first, have lost their 2 opening games. And they have a game this week again, this Friday night, tomorrow night that is, against Treaty United. They're a new team in this club and a new team in this competition. So I think Cove would see that as an opportunity maybe to open their campaign. They're the only team, I think, that haven't won either or got anything from their 2 matches. Cork City, after beating Cove the first day, beaten by Cabinteely the other night, they take on Athlone, and I think they've that's a good opportunity for them. But they need, they obviously have to start winning matches, because they're one of the teams that we talked about promotion. Those who are into the fortunes of professional golf, you'll be delighted obviously to know that it has already started the US Masters. Now, there's 4 majors every year. The US Masters, the US Open, the British Open, and the PGA. So basically it starts this weekend and it finishes on a Sunday night, and there's the winners of this competition. There's Justin Johnson won it last November because it was delayed, and he'll be handing over the green jacket. He'll be hoping to himself, but it takes place inside a little hut called Butler's Cabin. Interestingly, there's only 5 players ever that have won all 4 majors, and that's Gene Sarzen. I hadn't heard of him, but sadly I probably did hear of the next 4. You've got Ben Hogan, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, and of course Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods won't be taking part this year because of being involved in the high-speed car crash earlier on. The oldest winner ever was Jack Nicklaus. I think he was 43. And Lee Westwood is taking part in this year's competition. And in a couple of weeks' time, I think he's going to be 40 years of age. He's one of the guys that never won it. But the Irish interest, obviously, is going to be on Rory McIlroy, who has won 4 majors, but no Irish player, obviously, has won this major, the US. So he's never won this one. He'll be hoping to do that. No, he seemingly has changed his game a bit, because I don't know if those who follow golf, there's a fella called Bryson DeChambeau, who is an absolute tank of a man. I know whether he became a tank of a man by lifting weights or by drinking apple juice, I'm not too sure. But it would appear that Rory McIlroy kind of changed his style. He was influenced by him. He's now changed it back, and he's got a new coach involved, a fella called Pete Cowan, to kind of change his style a little bit. So he'll be hoping to add to that. And of course, you've Shane Lowry, who this is his 6th year taking part in the major. He has, in this major, I think he missed the cut on 4 occasions. Last year, was his best year in it. So we'd be hoping, obviously, that one of those 2 boys will win a big one. Aintree Racing Festival has started today, and of course, for many of us, the Grand National was a special day, but that has been seriously diminished in one sense when you consider, because of COVID. But it's still going to be, a race that people that may not have a huge interest in racing will keep an eye on. It's first, horses that are 7 years of age and over. The distance for those who are into that, 4 miles, 2.5 furlongs. It's 7 kilometres, because that's seemingly we're all doing these now. These 7K, 6K, 16 fences and all, and they jump 14 of them twice. Like, it's some test of endurance. Sadly, Tiger rolled because the handicapper game such high weights decided, his owners and trainers decided he wasn't taking part. But anyway, it is on Saturday 5:15, and obviously there'll be a number of Irish horses, a number of Irish jockeys, and whoever wins the Grand National, I mean, it is an incredible achievement, and it will, stay with that person and that trainer and that horse forever and a day. So we're nearly there. You'll be glad to know. But recently, I came across some sort of a discussion about funeral tributes, and obviously I don't need to tell you that, funerals at these times are so trying and testing because of all the regulations. But in another time, this was pre-COVID, when, like somebody goes up at the end of the ceremony to say a few words about the deceased. This story reverts about, it was... the man had passed away, the husband had passed away, and the wife decided to go to the pulpit to say her few words about her dearly departed late husband. And, you know, she talked about when they met and various attributes of his life. And then she spoke about the day they got married, that it was on the 21st of December. And she, you know, you can imagine the audience were, that what you call it, were listening, hushed tones. And that, yeah, they got married the 21st of December. And she said, you know, for most of us, we remember it as the shortest day of the year. But for herself and John, she will remember it as the longest night. Take from that what you will. Thank you for tuning your way. And until the next time, take care and God bless.